Looking back, I wasn't really into fighting games. The stuff I played a lot back then mostly consisted of story-driven titles, shooters, MOBA games, and of course, the iconic Flash games of the early 2000s. Kingdom Hearts, Spec Ops The Line, Max Payne, Grand Theft Auto, Club Penguin, and Roblox are some of the many games that stood out back when I barely knew how to ask for ketchup at McDonald's. I had a diverse selection of titles to play, and to compensate for that diversity, I had to phase out one genre to play a new one. However, in my entire life, Tekken was just lurking around the corner because it knows that I'll come back to it. Which is why I am excited to give you guys a story time-ish video about how I got into Tekken and how I still actively play it now. Now let's go back to a very humble beginning. It was during the PS3 era, way back when it was all the rage, but it was still fairly new at the time. My cousin had a PS2 instead, which was the second best thing to a PS3 obviously. I usually pull up to their place to just play games the whole evening before my bedtime. And as a 6-year-old who grew up around computers, it came as no surprise that I would be very interested in playing video games. My cousins introduced me to my first ever Tekken game, which was Tekken Tag Tournament. And my god, every time I listen to the opening theme, I just get flooded by nostalgia. I remember just mashing every button on the controller just to win a round, only to get bodied by a 5-hit combo that I can't seem to block.
Bro, you're trash, bro. Is them tears, bro? Come on, bro. You gotta get you together, boy.
It made every evening memorable when we played on that PS2. Obviously, since I only had the mental capacity of a child, I always picked Eddie Gordo whenever I had the chance. His inputs were just so brain dead that I can most likely win a match just by pressing a few buttons. Despite the short time frame, playing Tekken Tag is one of the most significant games I have ever played, because after that, the only fighting game I sought out for was Tekken. Many years have passed and I barely played Tekken way back when I was 10 to 12 years old. I was mostly into Roblox and whatever games that my Windows XP computer was capable of. The good thing is, my parents got a PSP for me, so I can be preoccupied with my games. Tekken 6 was what people usually played during this time period, and I knew a lot of people who played it. Since I had a PSP, I didn't waste time and I just started playing. At the time, I didn't really care much about the story, I just wanted to beat the story mode and unlock all the endings. The endings that are etched into my brain are the ones that Steve, Law, and Paul had. It was just really funny to me, and fighting Azazel to get those types of endings always paid off. To me, that set the tone of Tekken as this unserious fighting game, full of badass characters pitted against goofy ones, like whatever Kuma or Roger Jr. does. Playing Tekken 6 was a memorable experience for me, since it was a game I played for hours, bro. I mained Devil Jin because of his insane damage, and I made it to Marauder just by spamming the same input. I wasn't really much of a good player, and I gotta say I wasn't able to test out my skills online, but nonetheless, I enjoyed the game, and I still play it on my PSP emulator from time to time. Now, Tekken 7 barely popped into my radar until 2020, when my friends started playing it a lot. I know a couple people who spent hours on it, and I wanted to get a piece of the fun. So, I bought the game, and I gotta say, it was way different from Tekken 6. The story was solid, the fights had to be more strategic, and spamming inputs just isn't doing it for me anymore. I put in more time and effort for a fighting game, and coming from someone who barely plays any, it was such a breath of fresh air trying to get over the learning curve. It was a difficult journey, but I practiced just enough to get to Fighter. A lot of people might hate me for this, but I main Leroy and literally no one else. I bought the DLC character simply because he has parries and he's overall a defensive character. Working through the ranks was no easy task because a lot of players are hard to predict. I actually had to learn a lot of mechanics now, and I even know some of the jargon. I actually know what EWGF and DF2 stand for. The difference in experience I had between Tekken 6 and Tekken 7 was day and night. And as of making this video, I definitely had more hours put in Tekken 6 than Tekken 7, which is crazy. Now, for the record, I have about 60 plus hours on the game, It isn't much, and I still have a lot to work on, and luckily I have my friends who help me out mastering the inputs and all the different combos that just piss people off. Playing defensively in Tekken 7 is quite essential because I realized that the longer you play, the more you see weak points, which is such a satisfying way to progress. Now, aside from the fighting, the Tekken official soundtracks are just absolutely special to me. The music just really brings out the immersion factor that most games can't even live up to. Each Tekken game I played always had this unique vibe that always stood out and made it very memorable. Genres are just blended into each other in a way that is incomprehensible, but jaw-dropping at the same time. Just to put it into perspective, listen to Fakumram's theme song. It uses traditional instruments and just incorporates it with heavy electronic music. It's actually insane how Tekken can pull this off, and so far, I think Tekken's the only game capable of pulling it off. Relative to the other games I play, Tekken is still the new kid on the block. I have yet to put hundreds of hours into it, and with Tekken 8 coming out with its enormous price tag, I might have to hold back for a bit and stick with 7 for the time being. Sure, the heat system along with brand new mechanics and characters are quite enticing, but I have to spend my money somewhere else. It's just too expensive for me, and I think I'll just wait for the next sale because there's still much to learn in Tekken 7. There will come a time when I get to try it out, but until then, I'll keep waiting. However, I can't lie to you guys when I want to buy it at full price, but I'll just wait until the DLC characters come out, just so I can make a more informed choice. Tekken is such a solid video game franchise with an incredible legacy behind it. The Mishimas being thrown off cliffs, the non-existent language barrier that everyone just went with, and all the other unserious goofy stuff that they come up with, are what make the game stand out from every other fighting game out there. The level of difficulty is just a tiny bit uncomfortable, but it is just enough to make me want to keep playing. There's so much to learn from a diverse roster, and each of them has interesting storylines that I want to dive deep into. Tekken is the type of game where you just have to be there. Missing out on such a genre-defining video game was something I didn't want to happen to me, and I am so glad I got back and started getting better at it. And to top it all off, I enjoyed playing Tekken today just as much as playing it back when I was 6 years old. Way back when it all started. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.